Let's preserve the seed of life. Let's extract their vital essences to protect them. I will do this in Shurubak, said Ninhursag, and you will do it with the living creatures of Abzu. So, while the others waited anxiously for the flood, Enki and Ninhursag undertook a challenging task. In Shurubak, Ninhursag had the assistance of some of her assistants. Enki had the help of Ningish Zida in the Abzu, in the ancient House of Life. They collected the male and female essences, as well as the eggs of life. Thus, in pairs, males and females, they preserved them in both the Abzu and city of Shurubak. And then the trumpets sounded and the alarms went off. Ninurta announced, "The thunder on earth is terrifying." From the White Earth, Nergal and Ereshkigal declared, "The White Earth shaking." In Sipar, in the celestial ship place, the Annunaki gathered to wait for the flood. And it was at this moment, as the tension of the wait grew, in his dwelling, Enki fell asleep. In Sipar, the Annunaki awaited the starting signal. They were all gathered. It was then that a dream vision enveloped Enki in mystery and hope. Before him walked a bright and radiant man, as if he were the heavens themselves. And as he approached, he could see that it was Galzu, the white-haired Annunaki. In his right hand, he held a stylus, and in his left hand, a smooth and shiny lapis lazuli tablet. Galzu said, "Your accusations against Enlil are unjustified, for he was only telling the truth. And the decision, which as Enlil's decision will be known, I must say was destiny and not him who made it. Now take fate into your own hands, so that the earthlings can inherit the earth. Of the creator of all, summon your son Ziusudra, and reveal to him the impending calamity without breaking your oath. Instruct him to build a vessel that can remain submerged. Tell him that the construction to be made must withstand an avalanche of water. The vessel must be similar to the one on this tablet that I present to you. Let him save himself and his family, and let him take with him the seed of everything that is valuable, whether plants or animals." And with the stylus, Galzu drew an image on the tablet. He left the tablet engraved next to Enki's bed. And after the image disappeared, the dream vision ended, and shaking, Enki woke up. The vision was enigmatic but revealing. Enki lay in his bed reflecting with astonishment. What omen could this be? And as he looked around, he saw that the tablet was by his side. What he had dreamed had materialized before him. On the tablet, some measures were visible, and they were the exact measurements of the vessel. Immediately, Enki sent emissaries to find Galzu so that he could speak with him. However, he was surprised. They told him that Galzu had long since returned to Nibiru. Enki was perplexed and struggling to understand such a mystery and omen. Although unable to unravel what had happened, the message was clear. So secretly, that night, Enki went to the reed hut where Ziusudra was sleeping. And in front of the reed hut, Enki spoke not to Ziusudra, but to the wall of the hut. "Wake up! Wake up!" said Enki to the wall of reeds. "Pay attention to my instructions. A storm will fall upon the earth and sweep away all the cities. Humanity and its offspring will all be destroyed. This is the final decision. It is the word of the assembly convened by Enlil. The decision is made and announced by Anu, Enlil, and Ninhursag. Now listen to my words and observe the message that I transmit to you. Leave your home, build a boat, renounce your possessions and save your life. Reed hut, pay attention. You have only 7 days. Build a boat that can rotate and survive the flood. Make sure the boat is completely covered and that the sun cannot be seen inside it. Its design and measurements are described on a tablet. I will leave it here, next to the wall of the reed hut. Remember, you have 7 days. Build the boat and gather your family and relatives. Stack up food and drinking water. Also take domestic animals. Then, on the appointed day, a signal will be given. I will send an Annunaki as a guide who will be appointed by me and who knows the waters. He will come to you. On that day, you must get into the boat and close the hatch tightly. A crushing flood coming from the south will devastate the land and all life. The boat will break loose from its moorings, and then it will rotate and spin under the impact of the water. The echo of Enki's voice still rang in Ziusudra's ears when he was awakened by his words. Enki was hiding behind the reed hut and speaking in front of the wall. His message was clear. A terrible storm was approaching, and the destruction of all humanity was imminent. Ziusudra understood that he was only his own seed, the salvation of humanity. Ziusudra was paralyzed with fear and fell to his knees, begging to see Enki's face. But Enki refused. He had explained everything that was possible and made it clear that Ziusudra could not see his face. Otherwise, he would die. "And if the people ask," continued Enki, "say that Lord Enlil was angry with Enki, and that you will sail to the Abzu so that perhaps Lord Enlil will calm down." Then there was silence, and Ziusudra left the reed hut, finding the tablet that Enki had mentioned. On the tablet was a boat drawn just as Enki had described. The tablet glimmered in the moonlight. Ziusudra returned to the hut with only one certainty: something serious would indeed happen. The next morning, Ziusudra met the people and told them that he was condemned due to Enlil's irritation with Enki. He explained about Enlil's hostility and that he could not even set foot in the Edin. Thus, he should build a boat to find Lord Enki, in his domain in the Abzu. Upon hearing the news, the entire town mobilized to assist in building a boat. It was a massive ark, and the people were anxious. Everyone wanted to help and witness Ziusudra's departure, as this would mean speaking with Enki and appeasing Enlil's wrath. In this way, everyone would assist. Many sacrificed their own livelihoods to provide for Enlil. While some carried wood and helped with construction, others applied pitch. Ziusudra called for all who desired to seek the protection of Lord Enki in the Abzu to join the ark. Some artisans heeded his call, and then 6 days passed. It was on the 7th day, the day of the deluge, that Ninagal, the lord of the great waters, Enki's envoy, arrived. He was one of the great Lord Enki's sons and carried with him a cedar wood box. Ziusudra invited Ninagal aboard. The vessel was massive and well-equipped to withstand the imminent storm. So, Ziusudra and Ninagal waited for the 7th day. In the sky, the stars heralded the age of Leo. This was the 120th Shar. This was Ziusudra's 10th Shar of life. Suddenly, a dark cloud appeared on the horizon, obscuring the morning light. At that moment, a strange shadow of death covered the earth. Thunder rumbled and echoed across the planet, while lightning illuminated the skies. In Sippa, Utu gave the signal. "Depart, depart," he shouted to the other Annunaki. The gods rose in their celestial ships toward the sky. Ninagal, Enki's Annunaki envoy, could see the storm approaching from 18 leagues away. "Lock the door," Ninagal shouted to Ziusudra. His cry echoed throughout Shurubak, announcing the arrival of the greatest storm ever seen. The heavens opened, and a terrifying roar rose from the depths of the earth. Ziusudra and Ninagal, in their hastily constructed boat, felt the water violently agitating the hull. They had to close the gates. In a coordinated movement, both pulled the door that concealed the vessel's only entrance. The construction was completely sealed, and darkness engulfed everything. The waves crashed with force, but inside the vessel, nothing could be heard, except the muffled sound of the ocean. The deluge began with a deafening roar, and the whole earth shook. In the white land, at the bottom of the earth, the plates shook the foundations and moved violently. The ice broke and was dragged by the invisible forces of Nibiru's network. Huge blocks of ice collided, fragmenting the icy landscape. Suddenly, a gigantic wave rose, and the sky seemed to touch the sea. A fierce wind arose, blowing the waters to the north. The waters reached the lands of Abzu. From there, the wall of water advanced towards the inhabited lands of Edin. When the wall of water reached Shurubak, the moorings of the ark loosened, and the vessel was swallowed by the waters. Ziusudra and Ninagal felt the vessel being thrown around, as if they were in an aquatic abyss. Outside, the walls of water swallowed those who could not take shelter. The ground vanished, and there was only water, on all sides. Before the day could end, the wall of water gained strength and speed, heading towards the high mountains. The Anunnaki observed the Earth as they circled in their celestial ships, pressed against the outer walls of the ships. They were anxious to see what was happening on Earth. The waters had covered everything, and the world they knew had been transformed forever. Ninhursag cried. She was desperate with what she saw. She said that her creatures were drowning. Inanna also cried, lamenting that everything on Earth had turned into clay. The Anunnaki and the other ships watched with humility and admiration the power of nature. Some spoke of the fruits of the earth. Many desired the pleasure and taste of fermented fruit juice, but it was no longer possible. The Anunnaki consoled each other, certain that everything that existed before was destroyed and had turned to mud. Like a mortal battle, the storm swept people, mountains, and all lands with overwhelming speed. After the huge wave that swept the planet, the floodgates of heaven opened, and a torrential rain flooded the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. The peaks of the great mountains had become small islands in the vast sea that the planet had become. The flood, followed by the torrential rain, had modified all the landscapes of the planet and transformed everything into a great watery planet, reminiscent of the ancient Tiamat. However, in the course of the days, the water began to recede little by little. As in the beginning, the waters joined their basins. And 40 days after the start of the deluge, the rain also ceased. Only Ziusudra's vessel, built under Enki's guidance, had survived. Ziusudra opened the hatch and could see the sunlight. He felt a light breeze on his face. He discovered that the water had receded and that he was now adrift in a vast and infinite ocean. Ziusudra observed the destruction and lamented the loss of all humanity and all other forms of life. Ziusudra said, "No one survived, except for us. But there is still no solid land for us to walk on." Ninagal, the Anunnaki indicated by Enki, led the boat towards the twin mountains of Arata, where Ziusudra hoped to find solid ground. Impatiently, Ziusudra released birds to check for any signs of life and solid ground. First, he released a swallow, then a raven, but both returned to the boat. Finally, he released a dove, which returned with an olive branch in its beak. Ziusudra had discovered it. There was solid ground nearby. Thus, a few days later, the boat settled on one of the rocks. Ziusudra opened the impenetrable door of the boat and stepped out. Once again, he felt the gentle breeze and saw the sun. He hurriedly called his wife Emzara and their children. Ziusudra then thanked Lord Enki for his survival. With some stones, he built an altar to offer a sacrifice. He chose a sheep and lit the fire, and on the altar, he made his offering to Enki, his lord. At that time, in the skies and sheltered by their celestial ships, the Anunnaki observed the waters receding little by little. Enlil looked at Enki and said, "Let us make use of the small ships to descend onto the peak of Arata. Let us observe closely. Let us review what happened and what needs to be done." Thus, Enki and Enlil descended on the peak of Arata, while other Anunnaki, aboard other celestial ships, continued to circle the earth. Upon landing on solid ground, the brothers looked at each other and greeted each other. It was then that the smell of Ziusudra's sacrifice could be felt. "What is this?" Enlil asked. "What is this smell? Where is the fire coming from? The smell of roasted meat? Did someone survive the flood?" Enlil was furious. He stared at Enki with great anger. Enki responded subtly, "Let's go where the smell leads us and find out what happened." Then the brothers entered the smaller ships again. They flew over the peak of Arata and could see Ziusudra's boat. They landed their ships next to the great ark. Ziusudra, Emzara, their children and the other survivors could be seen, as well as Ninagal, Enki's son. It was then that Enlil had another fit of rage, and his fury knew no bounds. Enlil lunged at Enki. He was willing to kill his brother with his own hands. It was then that Enki revealed to him the greatest of secrets. "He is not a mere mortal, he is my son," Enki shouted, pointing in the direction of Ziusudra. For a brief moment, Enlil doubted what Enki had said, and then he accused him, "You have broken your oath." "No," said Enki. "I spoke to a reed wall. I did not speak directly to Ziusudra, and I did this only because of a dream vision," said Enki. Enki then told Enlil about the dream vision he had and what Galzu, the emissary of the creator of all, had told him. Ninagal, Enki's son, called out to the other Anunnaki, who also heard the account of events. When Ninurta and Ninhursag heard about it, they did not feel angry. Ninurta said that the survival of humanity was the will of the creator of all, and he said this to his father, Enlil. Ninhursag, in turn, vowed never to allow the destruction of humanity again. She spoke these same words while touching her crystal necklace, a gift from her father, Anu. Then she added, "By my oath, the annihilation of humanity will never be repeated." Enlil softened his heart. He realized that the survival of humanity was inevitable, so he approached Ziusudra and his wife, Imzara, in a gentle and peaceful manner and blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and thus populate the earth." Thus, peace was sealed between the Anunnaki and the Earthlings. The clans of Enki and Enlil had come to a conclusion. Ziusudra and his family survived in the Ark, whose construction had been guided by Enki in a dream vision in direct contact with a message from the creator of all. That was the end of the olden times. The olden times had begun with the first landing and ended with the flood. In those days, the flood had subsided and the Earth's surface was gradually being revealed. The mountains remained untouched, but the valleys were covered in mud and sediment. From their heavenly ships and smaller vessels, the Anunnaki observed the landscapes. Everything that had existed in the ancient cities in Aden and Abzu was now buried beneath the mud. Eridu, Nibruki, Shurubak, and Sipar had all vanished, swallowed by the waters and transformed into mud. Everything was entirely gone. From their ships, the Anunnaki circled the earth, and in the distance, they saw the great stone platform atop the Cedar Mountains shimmering in the sunlight. The landing place established in the olden times was still there. The smaller ships touched down on the platform, which was intact. In the launch corners, the enormous stone blocks remained firm. Clearing debris and tree branches, the first to land signaled the other ships, and one by one, the heavenly ships landed on the platform. News was sent to Marduk on Lamu and Nana on the moon, and they too returned to Earth, landing on the landing platform. Then the Anunnaki and the Igigi gathered, and Enlil called a meeting. Enlil said that they had survived the flood, but the entire Earth had been devastated. All means of recovery must be assessed, whether on Earth or elsewhere. Marduk spoke up, saying that Lamu was devastated, its atmosphere sucked away, and its waters evaporated by Nibiru's passage. The Lamu they once knew was no more, now a place of dust storms. Nana added that the moon could not sustain life on its own. One could only stay there with eagle masks, otherwise survival was impossible. Nana continued, saying that Tiamat's army leader must be immortalized, connected to Earth's fate. Enlil lovingly placed his arms on his son's shoulder, stating that their current priority was survival and sustenance. Enlil summoned Enki, his brother, and announced that they would inspect the sealed creation chamber, searching for the seeds of Nibiru. Next to the platform, they cleared away some mud and found the ancient well. They removed the stone blocking the entrance and entered the sanctuary. They discovered sealed diorite chests and opened them with a copper key, revealing crystal vessels containing Nibiru's grain seeds. They were still there. Enlil handed the seeds to Ninurta, instructing him to build terraces in the mountains so that the grains of Nibiru could grow. This way, they would once again have bread from the cereals. In the Cedar Mountains, and other mountains too, Ninurta built dams at the waterfalls, constructed terraces, and taught Ziusudra's eldest son about cultivation and planting. Meanwhile, Enlil assigned his youngest son, Ishkur, another task. Go where the waters have receded and find any remaining fruit trees. So Ziusudra's youngest son was tasked with fruit cultivation. The first fruit they found was the vine brought by Ninhursag. Ziusudra drank its juice and immediately fell asleep, as if intoxicated. That's when Enki surprised everyone. He offered a gift to the Anunnaki and the inhabitants of Earth. Enki opened the ark carried by Ninagal and announced that the vital essentials and life eggs could be combined in the wombs of the quadruped animals aboard Ziusudra's vessel. Enki said that sheep would multiply, providing wool and meat, and other living creatures would populate the earth. Thus, Enki also orchestrated Earth's reconstruction. Dumuzi was assigned the task of herding, with the help of Ziusudra's middle son. Then Enki focused on the dark-hued landmass where his and his son's domains were. At the confluence of powerful waters, Ninigel built dams in the mountains and channeled the violent waters of the waterfalls into a lake. Enki, along with Marduk, surveyed the lands between the Abzu and the Great Sea, contemplating how to drain the river valley where dwellings once stood. In the middle of the river, where the river waters cascaded, he raised an island and carved out 2 caves within it. He created stone channels above them, cut 2 channels in the rocks, and shaped 2 straits. This way, the waters flowing from the plateaus could be slowed down or sped up. He regulated the waters using dams and sluice gates, raising the winding river valley through the cave island, the island of Abu. In the land of the 2 narrows, Enki created a dwelling for Dumuzi and the shepherds. Joy and satisfaction filled the Anunnaki's hearts on earth, and Enlil relayed the news to Nibiru. However, on the Anunnaki's planet, words of concern were spoken. The damage was not only on Earth and Lamu, but Nibiru too had suffered greatly. The shield made of gold dust was torn, and the atmosphere was thinning once again. New shipments of gold to Nibiru were urgently needed. Enki traveled to the Abzu with his son Gibil, intending to research and search for gold. However, they were met with shocking and disheartening news. All the gold mines had vanished, buried under a massive flood. Enki and Enlil contacted Nibiru and relayed the news to their home planet. They reported that the city of Bad Tibira in Aydin no longer existed, and there was no landing place for the ships in Sipar. The hundreds of Anunnaki who worked in the mines in Bad Tibira had vanished from Earth. The Earthlings who had served as primitive workers had turned to clay after the flood. Earth could no longer provide the gold Nibiru so desperately needed. Despair was felt both on Nibiru and Earth. During this time, Ninurta completed his mission in the Cedar Mountains and traveled to the land of mountains across the oceans. From there, he sent astonishing and surprising news. The deluge had cut deeply into the mountainsides, revealing countless amounts of gold in large and small nuggets in the rivers below. The gold was pure and did not require refining or smelting. Ninurta reported that gold was everywhere. Enki and Enlil hurriedly traveled to the distant land of mountains and marveled at the discovery. Pure gold that needed no refining or smelting was abundant. "This is a miracle," Enki told Enlil. "What was done by Nibiru has been corrected by Nibiru." Enlil responded, "The invisible hand of the creator of all allowed life on Nibiru." But the leaders wondered, who could now collect the gold? And how would they be sent to Nibiru? Ninurta had an answer for the first question. On his journey to the high mountain lands across the oceans, he found not only gold, but survivors as well. He revealed to the other Anunnaki that there were 4 surviving brother and sister pairs who had saved themselves on rafts. They were descendants of Ka-In and knew how to manipulate metals. The survivors were on an island, the mountain's peak transformed into an island. They called Ninurta the Great Protector, and remembered him as a guardian of their ancestors. Upon hearing this news, even Enlil, who had planned the end of all Earthlings, was not angered. They all said to themselves and others, "It is the will of the Creator of all." The Anunnaki then created a new landing place for the celestial ships to enable direct travel between the new gold extraction site and Nibiru. They sought a dry, hardened plain and found it near the landing place on a desolate peninsula. The site was flat like a calm lake and surrounded by white mountains. To facilitate flight navigation between Earth and Nibiru, Enlil suggested to Enki that they could reproduce the celestial pathways on Earth. They decided to reflect the celestial paths of Anu and Enlil on our planet. Then Enlil measured the distances of the heavens and marked a grand design on a tablet for everyone on Earth to see. It was decided that the landing place in the Cedar Mountains would be part of the facilities. Next, Enlil measured the distance between the landing place and the place of the ships. designating a new location for a new mission control center at the center Moriah. In that position, he selected a suitable hill and named it Mount of Way Showing. Enlil ordered the construction of a stone platform, similar but smaller than the one at the landing place. In the center, a large stone was carved inside and out to house a new link between heaven and earth, a new navel of the earth, a new earth center, to establish the function of Nibiru Key before the flood. The landing shortcut was anchored in the north at the twin peaks of Arata. To mark the landing corridor, Enlil needed 2 more sets of twin peaks to define the corridor's boundaries and ensure ascent and descent. In the southern part of the desolate peninsula, a mountainous area, Enlil chose adjacent twin peaks, where he anchored the southern boundary. However, where the second set of twin peaks was needed, there were no mountains. Only a plain above the valley, flooded by waters, rose from the ground. Ningish Zida suggested to the other Annunaki, artificial peaks can be erected on it. So on a tablet, he drew the image of smooth peaks rising to the sky. If this can be done, let it be, Enlil approved. Let them also serve as beacons. Above the plain, over the river valley, Ningish Zida built a model. He perfected the ascending angles and the 4 smooth sides. Next to it, he placed a larger peak, its sides oriented to the 4 corners of the earth. The Anunnaki cut and erected stones with their powerful tools. Beside the first peak, in a precise location, they raised its twin peak. They carefully designed galleries and chambers for pulsating crystals. When this enormous peak rose to the heavens, the leaders were invited to place the capstone on it. Gibbel prepared a mixture of electrum from which the apex stone was made. The sunlight reflected to the horizon, and it was like a pillar of fire at night. It focused a beam to the heavens, harnessing the power of all the crystals. When the work proposed by Ningish Zida was completed, the Anunnaki entered the great twin peaks and marveled at what they saw. They gave it a name and called it Ekur, house which like a mountain is. It was a great beacon for the heavens. They told themselves that the Anunnaki who survived the great flood would always triumph, and so they proclaimed it. Now, the new place of the celestial ships could receive gold from lands beyond the seas, and from there, the ships could depart for Nibiru, carrying survival and leading to salvation. From the east, where the sun rises on the appointed day, they shall ascend. To the southwest, where the sun sets on the appointed day, they shall descend. Then Enlil, with his own hands, activated the crystals of Nibiru. From this, strange lights began to flicker inside, and a captivating hum broke the silence that had been on Earth. Outside, the apex stone suddenly shone, and it became brighter than the sun itself. The crowd of Annunaki gathered and let out a great and powerful cry of joy. Ninhursag, moved by the occasion, recited and sang a poem.
House that is like a mountain, house that faces the sky. It is equipped for heaven earth, it is the work of the Anunnaki. Bright and dark house, house of heaven and earth, built for the celestial ships, the Anunnaki constructed it. House whose interior glows with a reddish skylight. House whose interior shines with the reddish light of the sky, emits a pulsing ray that reaches far and high. Noble mountain among mountains, created great and noble, it is beyond the understanding of earth dwellers. House of equipment, noble house of eternity, its foundation stones touch the waters, its great circumference is set in the clay. House whose parts are skillfully interwoven, so that the great ones who circle in the heavens may descend to rest. House that is a landmark for spacecraft, with unfathomable innards. Ekur is blessed by Anu himself.
At the end of Ninhursag's exaltation song, the Anunnaki continued celebrating their remarkable work. Enki suggested to Enlil, we need to think of an answer to a puzzling question. When in future days, someone asks, when and by whom was this wonder created? Let's build a monument beside the twin mountains to announce the age of the lion. May the face bear the image of Ningish Zida, the designer of the mountains, and may it gaze precisely at the place of the celestial ships, so that it reveals to future generations when, by whom, and for what purpose it was created. Enlil agreed with Enki's words and said, UTU must once again be the commander of the place of the celestial ships. Let the lion look precisely to the east with the image of Ningish Zida. Thus, the work began to carve and shape the lion that celebrated the image of Ningish Zida. It was then that Marduk sought Enki, his father, and spoke bitter and angry words of discontent. You promised me dominion over the entire earth, but now command and glory are granted to others. I am left without lands or tasks. Artificial mountains rise over my former domains. In the image of the lion should be my image, not that of Ningish Zida. Marduk's words angered Ningish Zida, as well as the other sons. Ninurta and the rest of Enlil's sons also raised their voices, demanding domains in their names. All demanded lands for themselves and earthlings who could worship them. Ninhursag spoke up before the others, saying, "Let the celebration not become a dispute. The earth is still desolate. Among the earthlings there are only survivors, and we are few Annunaki. Let us pay heed to Marduk's words. Ningish Zida has not been deprived of his honor in Marduk's words." Ninhursag's voice became a peacemaker between the two clans. Enlil said, "For peace to prevail, we must divide the habitable lands among us." And so they agreed to make the peninsula an undisputed separator. They named it the Land of Missiles and called it Tilmun, a land beyond the reach of earthlings. They entrusted its care to Ninma, the peacemaker. To the east of the peninsula, in the habitable lands, they entrusted them to the care of Enlil and his sons, and for two of Ziusudra's sons, Shem and Japheth, to live there. The dark-hued landmass that included Abzu was granted to Enki and his clan for dominion. To inhabit it, they chose the people of Ziusudra's middle son, Ham. To appease his son, Enki suggested making Marduk their lord, ruler of their lands. And in this regard, Enlil said, "Let it be as you wish." In Tilmun, without its mountainous south, Ninurta built a dwelling for his mother, Ninhursag. It was located in a valley near a spring with palm trees. On the mountain peak, Ninurta planted a fragrant garden, and when everything was finished, they sent a signal to all the outposts on Earth. From the mountainous lands beyond the ocean, the small ships brought the gold nuggets. From the place of the celestial ships, the gold was taken to Nibiru. And on that memorable day, Enlil and Enki spoke and agreed. May Ninhursag, the peacemaker, be honored, and let a new title epithet be offered to her. Ninhursag, mistress of the mountain head, let it be another of her names. It was the first Shah since the Great Deluge, and tensions were simmering amongst all the royal houses of Annunaki. The sparks flew when Marduk boldly laid claim to dark-hued land and all its realms. The jostling for territories escalated, and Ninhursag, who had been the harmonious voice between the two clans, was bestowed with the title Ninhursag, her prior name being Ninma. Thus, Ninhursag was hailed as the Earth's peacemaker. The Annunaki, in one accord, sang praises to her very being. Ninhursag, with grace and finesse, steered the ship of order amongst them. Gold was ferried to Nibiru, and in the wake of celebrations, ambitions and rivalries dwindled. The earth, slowly but surely, sprung back to life, enriched by seeds safeguarded by Enki. All flourished anew, blanketing the earth, air, and water with renewed vigor. Yet amongst all treasures unearthed, the remnants of humanity were the crown jewels to the Annunaki. It was reminiscent of yore, when the primitive workers were forged. Now the Annunaki, fewer in number and weary, yearned for the toil of civilized human hands. And so unfolded the first Shah post-deluge. However, peace was breached not by a tussle between Marduk and Ninurta, or a direct squabble between the clans of Enki and Enlil. Turmoil erupted when Marduk's very own progeny, aided by the Igigi, tore asunder the calm and peace woven by Ninhursag. Considering the Egyptian context within the Annunaki story, it's necessary to clarify some points. Satu, the offspring of Marduk and Sarpanit, is the Egyptian god Seth, and will henceforth be referred to as such. Asar, another scion of Marduk and Sarpanit, will from now on be called Osiris. Asta, daughter of Shamgaz, will go by the name Isis. Nebat, also a daughter of Shamgaz, will be known as Nephthys. Horon will answer to the name Horus. Enki shall be Ptah. These names, Satu, Asar, Aster, Nebat, and Horon, will from this point be retired, and only their more familiar Egyptian monikers will be used. And now let us march forward with this tale that unveils the rich tapestry woven by the intermingling of Sumerian and Egyptian cultures, shedding light on key aspects of the Anunnaki's sojourn on Earth. When Marduk and Sarpanit were on Mars, waiting for the end of the deluge, Osiris and Seth, the couple's children, fell in love with the daughters of Shamgaz, the leader of the Igigi. When they returned to Earth, the two brothers chose wives. Osiris married Isis, and Seth committed himself to Nephthys. Osiris chose to stay in the dark-hued land with his father Marduk, while Seth established his residence near the landing place, where the Igigi and Shamgaz dwelled. Restless with earthly domains, Shamgaz questioned and instigated other Igigi. What about the Igigi? Shouldn't they be lords? Nephthys constantly brought these thoughts to Seth. With his father, Osiris would be the sole heir of the fertile lands. Thus, Shamgaz and his daughter Nephthys whispered to Seth, weaving plans to maintain control over the succession. Thus, they organized a feast. They invited the Igigi and the all Anunnaki races. Unaware, Osiris joined the celebration with his brother. Nephthys, his wife's sister, adorned herself and sang a song to Osiris while playing the lyre. Seth served succulent meat to Osiris, and Shamgaz offered him new wine in a chalice mixed with an elixir. Osiris was in a good mood. He sang joyfully and took part in the music, playing the cymbals. Later, under the effect of the drink and the elixir offered by Shamgaz, Osiris fell to the ground. "Let him rest," said the hosts, and so they took Osiris to another chamber. They led him to a coffin and closed it with strong clasps, throwing it into the sea. Upon learning of what had happened, Isis wept profusely for the death of her husband. Osiris's coffin was found by the seaside in the dark-hued land. His lifeless body lay inside, stiff and cold. The breath of life had escaped from his nostrils. Marduk, devastated, tore his garments and covered his forehead with ashes. My son, lamented Sarpanit, immersed in grief and sadness. Disturbed, Enki cried out, "The curse of Cain repeats itself," he exclaimed in agony to his son Marduk. Isis raised a lament to the heavens and pleaded with Marduk for revenge and an heir. Seth must meet his inevitable fate and punishment. However, I beg you, allow me to conceive a successor from his own seed, and may your son be remembered by his name, so that his lineage may survive. That unfortunately cannot be done, Enki replied to Marduk and Isis. Isis was perplexed and deeply troubled, deciding to challenge the orders. Before the body of Osiris was wrapped and preserved in the sanctuary, Isis, with skill and cunning, extracted the essence of life from her beloved Osiris. Through this daring act, Isis conceived the heir and avenger of Osiris. Before Enki and his sons, before Marduk and other Anunnaki, Seth proclaimed his word. I am the sole heir and successor of Marduk, and thus I shall be the lord of the land of the Two Narrows. Seth also found other paths and developments. After the battle over the Tilman area, Enlil summoned his 3 sons to a council. Concerned about the recent events, Enlil said to them, "In the beginning, we created the earthlings in our image and likeness, but now the descendants of the Anunnaki resemble the earthlings. Cain killed his brother, and now a son of Marduk is also a brother's killer. For the first time in history, the descendants of the Anunnaki have raised an army of earthlings and metal weapons. A secret of the Anunnaki have been placed in their hands. Since the days when Lulu and Anzu challenged our legitimacy, the disturbance and disobedience of the Igigi persist," Enlil continued in a bellicose and perplexed tone. "Under the dominion of Marduk, the peaks of the lighthouses are hidden. They are besieged, where the Igigi protect the landing place. Thus, the Igigi advance toward the place of the celestial chariots. They proclaim, in the name of Seth, and intend to establish themselves in all the heaven-earth facilities." Enlil, realizing the intention of the Igigi, shared his concern with his sons and proposed the creation of an alternative heaven-earth facility. Enlil wished to establish it in the land of Ninurta, beyond the oceans. and to secretly surround it with earthlings he trusted. Thus, the secret mission was entrusted to Ninurta, who set out in search of the ideal location. In the mountains beyond the oceans, next to an immense lake, Ninurta established the new heaven-earth bond, protected by an enclosure. Then he chose a firm-soiled plain, where he marked the points of ascent and descent. The facilities, although primitive, would serve their purpose. Ninurta communicated his success to Enlil, ensuring that the shipments of gold to Nibiru would continue and that, if necessary, they could ascend from that location. However, at that time what began as a blessing had a terrible outcome. Dumuzi, Enki's youngest son, had fallen madly in love with Inanna, Nana's daughter. Inanna, granddaughter of Enlil, was also in love with Dumuzi, the lord of shepherding. It was an unconditional love that engulfed two young individuals, consuming them with a passionate and enigmatic fervor. The love songs that echoed through the ages were first sung by Inanna and Dumuzi, immortalizing their love in each verse. Enki, the wise, designated Dumuzi, his youngest son, with a vast domain over the Abzu. Meluha, the Black Land as it was called, where imposing trees grew and abundant waters flowed. Great bulls roamed among the river reeds, and countless herds filled their lands. Mountains of silver and shining copper like gold were parts of his kingdom. Dumuzi was greatly loved, and after the death of Osiris he was favored by Enki. However, envy corroded the heart of his younger brother Marduk. Inanna, daughter of Nanna and Ningal, was nurtured by Enlil since her birth. Her beauty was indescribable, and she competed in martial arts with the Annunaki heroes. She learned about celestial travels and celestial ships from her brother Utu. A celestial ship of her own was presented to her by the Annunaki to navigate the skies of Earth. After the flood, on the landing platform, the gazes of Dumuzi and Inanna met, sealing a mysterious destiny. And thus, a warm encounter took place between them. They hesitated at first. He belonged to Enki's clan, and she was a descendant of Enlil. When Ninhursag united the rival clans in search of peace, Inanna and Dumuzi secretly met away from the eyes of either clan and confessed their love to each other. Walking together, they exchanged sweet words of passion and enchantment. They lay side by side, hearts in harmony, and Dumuzi, filled with desire, embraced Inanna. "Let me teach you, whispered Dumuzi to Inanna. She kissed him gently, and then spoke of her mother, Ningal. What lie would I tell? What words should be spoken? They decided to reveal their sincere love for each other. They planned for it to be a joyous occasion, and the scent of cedar would be used to receive the blessing. Thus, the lovers went to meet Ningal, Inanna's mother. Ningal blessed them, and Inanna's mother approved of Dumuzi. Ningal said, "Lord Dumuzi, as Nanna's son-in-law, you are worthy." Dumuzi was received as a groom by Nanna and announced by Utu, Inanna's brother. Enlil spoke to all those present. A marriage could be the key to peace between the clans. At that moment, while Dumuzi shared his love and engagement with his father and brothers, Enki also glimpsed the possibility of a unifying union and granted his blessing to Dumuzi. The joy of the engagement infected Dumuzi's brothers, except for one. That one was Marduk. Gebel carved a bridal bed of gold, and Nergal sent blue lapis lazuli stones. To please Inanna, sweet dates, her favorite fruit, were piled up next to the bed. Beneath the fruits, lapis lazuli stones lay hidden, waiting to be discovered by Inanna. According to tradition, one of Dumuzi's sisters was tasked with perfuming and dressing the bride. That sister was Geshtinanna, and her epithet meant, the one to be healed. Inanna unveiled her deepest aspirations for the future alongside Dumuzi to Geshtinanna. She envisioned a grand nation where Dumuzi, a great Annunaki, would ascend. His name would be hailed above all others, and she would become his queen. Together, they would rule and bring rebellious nations under their control. Dumuzi would be granted power and govern the nation with fairness. Geshtinanna, startled by Inanna's immense ambition, reported the visions and ambitions for a new government to Marduk. Marduk was disturbed. Inanna's ambition and the idea of a new government with Dumuzi were an affront to him. So Marduk confided a secret plan to Geshtinana. And then Geshtinana went to the shelter of her brother Dumuzi, disguised with an enchanting and perfumed appearance. She whispered to Dumuzi, "Before you rest with your young wife in your arms, you must conceive a legitimate heir, born of a sister. A child born through Inanna will have no right to succession and will not be raised in the presence of his mother." With a gentle touch, she placed her hand on his and approached him, saying, "My brother, I shall lie with you. Together we shall have a descendant of Enki, and the dual seed shall prevail." Thus Geshtinana whispered to Dumuzi, aiming to generate a noble lineage within her womb. Dumuzi surrendered to desire, and then he poured his seed into Geshtinana's womb and fell asleep. In the night, a dream befell Dumuzi. It was a revelation of impending death. In the dream, 7 wicked bandits invaded his dwelling. They said, "The master has sent us to you, son of Duttur." They drove away his sheep and seized his lambs and goats. They stole the crown of his majesty, stripped him of his royal attire, violently shattered his shepherd's staff, and toppled his chalice. Deprived of everything and chained, he was left to perish in the name of the bird prince and the falcon. Dumuzi woke up in the heart of the night, terrified and disturbed. He recounted the dream to Geshtinana. She warned him, "The omen is not favorable. Marduk will accuse you of violating me and bring upon you a curse. He will send emissaries to arrest you. He will dishonor you and sever your relationship with an Enlilite." Dumuzi roared ferociously, "Betrayal! Betrayal!" And then he pleaded for help from Utiu, Inanna's brother, and invoked the name of his father, Enki, as a protective talisman. Dumuzi embarked on a journey across the desert of Emush, the desert of serpents, seeking refuge in a place adorned with majestic waterfalls, fleeing from his malevolent pursuers. Upon reaching a spot where the waters flowed, making the rocks smooth and slippery, Dumuzi lost his balance and fell. The rushing waters carried his lifeless body in frothy foam, delivering him to the emissaries of evil who captured him. The lifeless body of Dumuzi was recovered from the waters of the lake by Ninagal. Thus, he carried Dumuzi's body to the realm of Nergal and Ereshkigal in the lower Abzu. On a stone slab lay the motionless body of Dumuzi, Enki's son. Upon learning of what had happened, Enki tore his garments and covered Dumuzi with ashes, lamenting, my son, what have I done to be so severely punished?" And he questioned aloud, "I, Ea, whose house is the water, brought forth the waters that propelled the celestial ships and landed on earth. A torrent of waters devastated the earth. My grandson Osiris perished in the waters, and now my beloved Dumuzi meets the same fate, also in the waters. All that I did with just cause. Why am I punished? Why has fate turned against me?" Enki wept and mourned. When Geshtinana revealed the truth behind the events, Enki's anguish increased. Meanwhile, Inanna, the bride, was enveloped in a veil of concern and deep sorrow. The disappearance and death of her beloved Dumuzi were an absolute catastrophe. Determined to retrieve her lover's body to give him a dignified burial, Inanna descended into the depths of the lower Abzu. Her sister Ereshkigal, the queen of those domains, was alerted to Inanna's arrival at the temple gates and suspected a deceitful plot. At each of the 7 gates leading to Ereshkigal's throne one by one, Inanna's possessions were stripped away. Despoiled and defenseless, Inanna was accused of conspiring to have an heir with Nergal, Dumuzi's brother. Ereshkigal, consumed by anger, did not allow Inanna to explain herself. She ordered her vizier, Namtar, to unleash 60 terrible diseases upon her sister. Inanna's disappearance in the lower Abzu alarmed her parents. Nanna sought Enlil, who in turn sent a message to Enki. Upon learning of the situation from Nergal, Ereshkigal's son and husband, Enki acted swiftly. He fashioned 2 emissaries from the clay of the Abzu, beings without blood, immune to the rays of death. He sent them to the lower Abzu with the mission of bringing back Inanna, whether alive or dead. When they encountered Ereshkigal, the emissaries caused her bewilderment. Unable to discern their origin, the queen asked if they were Annunaki or beings of the earth. Namtar attacked them with magical weapons, but the 2 remained unharmed. And so, they reached the lifeless body of Inanna. It was hanging on a stake. The emissaries created by Enki used the pulsator and the emitter. Then, they sprinkled the water of life upon her and placed the plant of life in her mouth. Inanna opened her eyes, and then she took a breath of life. Thus, Inanna arose in the realm of the dead. As they prepared to take Inanna back to the upper world, she ordered them to also take the lifeless body of Dumuzi. At the 7 gates of the lower Abzu, Inanna's adornments and utensils were returned to her. She instructed the emissaries to take Dumuzi to the Blackland, where they should wash him with pure water, anoint him with sweet oil, and dress him in a red shroud, placing him upon a lapis lazuli slab. There, they were to carve a resting place in the rocks and wait for the day of rebirth. Inanna, thirsting for revenge, made her way to Enki's abode. She sought vengeance for the death of her beloved and demanded the death of the culprit, Marduk. Enki whispered softly, "There have already been enough deaths." Marduk provoked, but did not act upon it. Inanna, consumed by despair and a craving for justice, cried out to the heavens. Vengeance and justice should befall Marduk. In Enlil's dwelling, Inanna and Utu, her children, gathered in council to discuss the strategies for the impending war. Ninurta, who had previously defeated the rebellious Anzu, demanded more drastic actions. Utu revealed whispers of the secret words exchanged between Marduk and the Igigi. Enlil then agreed that Earth needed to be liberated. He stated that Marduk was like a malevolent serpent, representing a poison. In this manner, Enki received the demand for Marduk's surrender. Thus, amidst the mourning for Dumuzi, Enki summoned his children to defend Marduk, his firstborn and heir. Enki said, "I still mourn the departure of my beloved Dumuzi. However, I must defend the rights of Marduk. Despite the evil instigated by Marduk, Dumuzi did not die by his hands." And thus Enki declared that Marduk should be protected by all. Gibel and Ninagal answered their father's call, while Ningish-Zida opposed and Nergal hesitated, promising aid only in the face of mortal danger. And so, a war of unparalleled ferocity erupted between the two clans. The battle was no longer between the descendants of the Earthlings, but between the Annunaki, born on Nibiru, engaged in a conflict that extended beyond their original world. The war began when Inanna, the instigator of the war, crossed the domains of Enki's children in her spaceship, pursuing Marduk, who took refuge in the territories of Ninagal and Gibil. Ninurta, coming to his aid, unleashed devastating rays from the Stormbird, while Ishkur attacked with blazing lightning and crushing thunder. In the Abzu, the rivers were deprived of fish, and the cattle scattered across the fields. Marduk retreated to the north, to the artificial mountains. Relentlessly, Ninurta unleashed poisoned missiles upon the dwellings, and his devastating weapon deprived the people of those lands of their senses. The channels, once filled with river waters, turned blood red. As the terrifying battles spread to the north, Marduk hid in the Ekur. Gibel granted him an invisible shield, and Nergal raised the all-seeing eye to the sky. With a brilliant weapon, Inanna attacked the hidden place. Horus emerged in defense of his grandfather, and the brightness of Inanna's weapon damaged his right eye. Utu contained the Igigi and their horde of terrestrial beings beyond Tilman, at the foot of the artificial mountains. The Annunaki from both clans clashed and started a great battle at the foot of the artificial mountains. Enlil sent words to Enki to seal the peace. "Let Marduk surrender. Let the bloodshed end." Ninhursag sent other words to Enki. "Let brother speak to brother," she said. In his hiding place within the Ekur, Marduk persisted and defied his pursuers. In the house that resembles a mountain, his final resistance was fought. Inanna failed to overcome the imposing stone structure, as its smooth sides deflected her weapons. But cunningly, Ninurta discovered a secret entrance, and then he rotated the stone located to the north of the Great Pyramid. Through a dark corridor, Ninurta advanced, reaching the immense gallery, its ceiling shining with the diverse colors of crystals, like a sparkling rainbow. But Marduk became aware of the invasion and awaited Ninurta with weapons in hand. Ninurta directed his weapons at the shimmering crystals and entered the gallery. Marduk retreated to the upper chamber, to the place of the great pulsating stone. At the entrance, Marduk closed the sliding stone locks, preventing anyone who dared to challenge him from entering. Inside the Ekur, Inanna and Ishkur also entered and followed Ninurta. Then Ninurta, Inanna and Ishkur discussed what could be done. May the chamber where Marduk hides be his stone sepulchre. Ishkur pointed to the 3 stone blocks arranged to slide down. The 3 obstructing stones are ready to slide, he said. May death be slow. May he be buried alive, and may it be Marduk's verdict, said Inanna. Thus, each of them cleared one of the stones. The 3 obstructing stones were released to bury Marduk like in a tomb. Each of them slid a stone to obstruct, sealing Marduk like in a grave. And then the stones fell into a deep abyss, far from the sun and light, without food or water. Marduk lay in the Ekur. Sarpanit, his wife, mourned his imprisonment and punishment without trial. She sought Enki, her father-in-law, accompanied by her youngest son, Nabu. She said, Marduk's life must be restored. Enki asked Utu and Nanna to intercede with Inanna. So they brought Sarpanit's words for Marduk to live in penitential garments, to live humbly, and to renounce power. However, Inanna would not be appeased. She said, for the sake of honor, the instigator must succumb. Inanna retorted. Ninhursag, the peacemaker, gathered the brothers Enki and Enlil. She said, Marduk deserves punishment, but death is not justified, she asserted. Let Marduk be in exile, and let succession on earth be granted to Ninurta. Enlil was pleased with the words and smiled. Ninurta was his son with Ninhursag. As a father, what choice do I have between succession and life? With a heavy heart, Enki continued, in my lands, desolation spreads. The war must come to an end. I still weep for Dumuzi. So let Marduk live in exile. Enlil said, if peace is to reign and Marduk is to live, agreements and compromises must be made. And so, Enlil observed his advantage, intending to be the foremost among the brothers. He raised his voice and continued, all the facilities that connect heaven and earth must be entrusted solely to me. Dominion over the land of the 2 Narrows must be handed over to another son. The Ajiji who follow Marduk must be directed to relinquish the landing place and abandon their alliance and commitment to Marduk. Marduk must be led to a land of no return, where no descendant of Zeusudra resides. Thus, Marduk must depart into exile. Enki recognized the hand of fortune in his heart. So be it, he said, bowing his head. The name of Ningish-Zida was mentioned shortly thereafter in 2 ways. He was designated for the rescue of Marduk and also to be the lord of the lands of Ekur. It was said that Ningish-Zida, also known as Thoth, was knowledgeable of the secrets of Ekur. When the great Annunaki announced their decrees, Ningish-Zida was called upon to perform the rescue. His challenge was to extract Marduk from the blocked depths, from the bowels of the Great Pyramid. Saving Marduk, buried alive, was a mission that exceeded his own conception. Ningish-Zida studied the hidden designs of Ekur and devised a plan to overcome the obstacles. Then he said, through a carved upper opening, Marduk will be liberated, and he revealed his plan to the leaders. Ningish-Zida spoke, in a location I will show you, we will open a door in the stones, and from there, we will trace a winding path, forging a rescue axis. Through the hidden recesses, we will enter the heart of Ekur. At the epicenter of the chambers, we will break through the rocks. Opening a door inward, we will bypass the blockades. Through the grand gallery we will proceed, raising the 3 stone barriers, and we will reach the highest chamber, the deadly prison of Marduk. Thus, the Annunaki, guided by Ningish-Zida, pursued their meticulous plan. With tools that cleaved the rocks, they opened the entrance and shaped the rescue shaft. They penetrated into the interior of the ingenious mountain and created a passage. Circumventing the 3 stone barriers, they reached the highest chamber. On a narrow platform, they erected the iron gates and rescued the unconscious Marduk. With caution, through the winding shaft, they led Marduk to the fresh air. Outside, Sarpanit and Nabu, wife and son, awaited. and finally an emotional reunion took place. Then Enki conveyed the conditions of his release, but Marduk became enraged. Before his eyes, it was a colossal humiliation. Marduk said, "I'd rather die than renounce my inheritance." Sarpanit drew Nabu close to her arms. "We are part of your future," Sarpanit whispered. Marduk, enraged and humiliated, uttered, "I surrender to my destiny," in a low voice. Sarpanit and Nabu then accompanied the desolate Marduk and thus embarked on an irreversible land. They arrived in a forbidden land where horned beasts are hunted. After Marduk's departure, Ninurta entered the Akur once again through its entrance. He proceeded through the corridors towards a mysterious structure. There, on the eastern wall, a small artistic opening radiated a reddish glow. It was the crimson brilliance of the Stone of Destiny. Tormented, Ninurta exclaimed in anguish, "Its power captures me to kill me, subjugating me with a deadly attraction." Ninurta shouted from within the chamber. Then he ordered them to take the stone and destroy it completely. Retracing his steps, Ninurta entered the grand gallery and reached the highest chamber. In a chest carved from stone, the heart of the Akur pulsed. The force of its network expanded through 5 compartments. Ninurta struck the chest, which responded with a resonance. Then he ordered the removal of the Gugstone, a crystal of beams that determined directions, and for it to be transported to a place of his choosing. Descending through the vast gallery, Ninurta examined the 27 pairs of crystals originating from Nibiru. Many were damaged in the battle against Marduk, while others, still intact, survived the fight. Ninurta instructed that the intact ones be removed from their niches, while the others he pulverized with his rays. Then, outside the Akur, the Great Pyramid, house which like a mountain is, took flight on its blackbird towards the apex stone. He carefully observed the supreme symbol of his enemy. With his weapons, he released the symbol and caused it to crumble into pieces on the ground. "With this, the fear of Marduk is finished," declared Ninurta, victorious. On the battlefield, the gathered Annunaki praised Ninurta. They said, "You resemble Anu," they shouted to their hero and leader. To replace the disabled beacon, a mountain near the place of the celestial chariots was chosen. Within its depths, the rescued crystals were placed. At its peak, the Gugstone, the Stone of Direction, was installed. The mountain was then named Mount Mashu, the Mount of the Supreme Celestial Bark. Then, Enlil summoned his 3 sons. Ninlil and Ninmah were also present. They confirmed their command over the ancient lands and assigned lordships over the new lands. Ninurta, the son of Enlil, who had defeated Anzu and Marduk, was given the powers previously granted to Enlil to replace his father in all the lands. Ishkur was granted dominion over the landing place in the Cedar Mountains. Thus, Ishkur's new domains merged with his existing domains in the north. Nana was granted the lands to the south and east, where the Ajiji and their offspring had spread. The peninsula where the place of the celestial chariot stood was included in Nana's lands. Utu was declared the commander of the place and of the navel of the earth. In the land of the 2 Narrows, as agreed, lordship was granted to Ningish Zida through Enki. None of the other sons of Enki opposed this concession. However, Inanna resisted. For the inheritance of Dumuzi, her deceased betrothed, Inanna claimed. And from Enlil, Inanna demanded a domain solely for herself. The leaders pondered on how to satisfy Inanna's demands and sought advice from the great Annunaki, who decreed fates. They decided to seek clarification from Anu regarding the events on Earth and the division of territories. Since the great calamity in the times of the deluge, almost 2 Shahs had passed. The Earthlings moved from the mountainous lands and returned to the lowlands. They were descendants of civilized humanity through Zusudra and were mixed with the seed of the Annunaki. The descendants of the Ijiji who intermarried roamed the lands, and in distant lands, the descendants of Kain also survived. Few and noble, the Annunaki who came from Nibiru were their perfect descendants. The great Annunaki pondered on how to establish settlements for themselves and for the Earthlings. The questions revolved around how to maintain their nobility over humanity and how to ensure that the many and vast masses of Earthlings would obey and serve the few. How could they remain elevated above humanity? Amidst all this, regarding the future, the leaders exchanged words with Annu. And it was then that Annu, the mighty king of Nibiru, decided to return to Earth once again, accompanied by Antu, his wife, who also wished to visit Earth. To come to Earth once more, Annu decided. With Antu, his spouse, he wished to come. While his arrival they awaited, the Anunnaki abodes in the Eden to be re-established began. From the mountain lands, descendants of Shem dwelt. To the old, the black-headed people migrated. Upon the newly dried soil, the Anunnaki let them settle, food for all to provide. Eridu, Enki's first city, before where deluge had stood. On top of the myriads of mud and silt, a new Eridu was marked out. In its center was a raised platform, an abode for Enki and Ninki was built. House of Tile Lord, whose return is triumphant it was called, with gold and silver and precious metals by Enki's sons, provided it was adorned and filled. Above, in a circle in the sky, the 12 constellations by their signs were marked out by the tablets of destiny. Below, in the Abzu, waters with swimming fishes flowed. In a sanctuary, a place that no uninvited can enter, Enki the DNA formulas kept. For Enlil and Ninlil, a Nibruki atop of the mud and silt was established. Amid its people's dwellings and cattle folds, a sacred precinct was walled off. An abode for Enlil and Ninlil therein was built. In 7 stages it arose. A stairway, rising as to heaven, to the topmost platform led. The tablets of destinies. Enlil kept there with his weapons, it was protected. The lifted all-seeing eye that scans the lands, and the lifted beam that penetrates all, was kept in an enclosure in a courtyard. As the time for the arrival of Anu and Antu neared, for their stay in the Eden a new place was selected. It would be neither Enlil's nor Enki's. Unugki, the delightful place it was named. Shade trees in it were planted. A pure white structure, the house of Anu in its midst was built. Its exterior in 7 stages rose. Its interior like a king's quarters it was. When the celestial chariot of Anu at Earth arrived, Anunnaki Atlantean skyships toward it soared. For a safe landing at the place of the chariots, in Tilman, it was guided. Utu, the place's commander, his great-grandparents to planet Earth he welcomed. The 3 children of Anu, Enlil, and Enki and Ninharsag stood there to greet them. They embraced and kissed, they laughed and cried. So long has the separation been, they to each other kept saying. At each other they looked, aging to examine. Though greater in shars and years were the parents, they looked younger than their children. The 2 sons looked old and bearded. Ninharsag, once a beauty, was bent and wrinkled. All 5 of them with tears were filled. Tears of joy with sorrowed tears were mingled. In skyships were the guests and their hosts to the Eden taken. In a prepared place beside Unugki the skyships landed. All the Anunnaki that on Earth had stayed as an honor guard were standing. Hail and welcome, in unison to Anu and Antu they were shouting. Then in a procession, singing and music playing, the Anunnaki to the house of Anu, all the guests accompanied. In the house of Anu, Anu washed and rested. Then he was perfumed and clothed. Antu by female Anunnaki to the house of the golden bed was escorted. There she too washed and rested, then she was perfumed and clothed. In the open courtyard, as an evening breeze the tree leaves rustled, Anu and Antu on thrones were seated. Flanking them were Enlil and Enki and Ninharsag, attendant earthlings who were completely naked. Wine and good oil they served. Others, in a corner of the courtyard, a bull and a ram, gifts of Enlil and Enki, on a fire were roasting. A great banquet was for Anu and Antu prepared. For the sign in the heavens its start was awaiting. On Enlil's instructions, Zumul, who in matters of stars and planets was a master. The steps of the house of Anu ascended, the rising of the planets that he was to announce. On the first step, Kishar in the eastern skies appeared. Lahamu, or the second step, was seen. Mumu on the third step was announced. Anshar by the 4th step rose. Lahmu on the 5th step was seen. The moon from the 6th step was announced. Then, on a signal from Zumul, the hymn, "The Planet of Anu in the Skies Rises," began to be sung. From the topmost step, the 7th, the red-haloed Nibiru interview came. To music the Anunnaki clapped and danced, to music they danced and sang. To the one who grows bright, the heavenly planet of the Lord Anu sang. On the signal a bonfire was lit, seen from place to place where the bonfires started. Before the night was over, the whole land of Eden bonfires were lit. After a meal of bull meat and ram meat, of fish and fowl, wine and beer was accompanied. Anu and Antu to their overnight quarters were accompanied. By Anu and Antu were all the Anunnaki thanked. For several earth days and nights Anu and Antu slept. On the 6th day, his 2 sons and daughter Anu summoned. Of what had on earth transpired their accounts he heard, of the peace and the warfare he learned. Of how the earthlings, by the oath of Enlil to be wiped off, had again proliferated Anu as well heard. Of the gold discovery in the land beyond the oceans and the chariots placed there, Enlil revealed to him. It was then that of the dream, and the tablet from Galzu, his son Enki to his father told. By that Anu was greatly puzzled, a secret emissary by that name of Galzu. To earth by me was never sent. So did Anu to the 3 leaders say. Puzzled were Enki and Enlil, baffled they at each other looked. On account of Galzu, Ziusudra, also known as Noah, and the seed of life were saved, Enki said. On account of Galzu on earth we remained, Enlil to his father said. The day we returned to Nibiru we would die, so did Galzu to us say. Incredulous of that was Anu. The change of cycles indeed havoc and death it did cause, but with elixirs it was cured. Whose emissary, if not yours, was Galzu? Enki and Enlil in unison said. Who wanted the earthlings to be saved? Who on earth made us stay? Ninhursag her head slowly nodded. For the creator of all did Galzu appear. Was the creation of the earthlings also destined? Of that I must wonder. For a while the 4 of them were silent, each one past events in his heart recounted. While fates we decreed, the hand of destiny every step directed, so did Anu say. The will of the creator of all is clear to see. On earth and for earthlings, only emissaries we are. The earth to the earthlings now belongs, to preserve and advance them we were intended. If that is our mission here, let us accordingly act, so did Enki say. The great Anunnaki, who the fates decree councils, exchanged regarding the lands. To create civilized regions, the great Anunnaki decided, therein knowledge to mankind provide. Cities of man to establish, therein in sacred precincts abodes for the Anunnaki to create. Kingship as on Nibiru on earth established, crown and scepter to a chosen earthman we must give. By him the word of the Anunnaki to the people was conveyed, work and dexterity was to be enforced. In the sacred precincts a priesthood was to be established, the Anunnaki as lofty lords to be served and worshipped. Secret knowledge to be taught, civilization to mankind will be conveyed. To create 4 regions, 3 for mankind, 1 restricted, the Anunnaki would be resolved. The first region in the olden Eden land to be established for Enlil and his sons to dominate. The second region in the land of the 2 narrows of Kemet thereafter to follow, for Enki and his sons to lord. The third region, with the other 2 not mingling, in a distant land to Inanna was granted. The 4th region, for the Anunnaki alone consecrated, the peninsula of the place of the celestial chariots it will be. Now this is the account of Anu's journey to the lands beyond the oceans, and how in the first region for the Anunnaki cities were re-established after the Great Flood, having the decision about the 4 regions and mankind civilizations made. Anu about his grandson Marduk, he inquired. I must see Marduk, my grandson, again. To the leaders Anu said, whether by Dumuzi and Ningish Zida to Nibiru inviting, Marduk's ire I myself have caused. So did Anu wonder, to reconsider the punishment of Marduk he wished. When to the lands beyond the oceans we journey, Marduk to meet you will be told. The land where he roams, in those parts of the earth it is. So did Enlil to Anu say. Before the distant lands the royal couple went, the Eden and its lands, Anu and Antu surveyed. Eridu and Nibruki they visited, where the cities of the first region were planned they saw. In Eridu, Enlil about Enki complained. The DNA formulas to himself Enki is keeping. Anu, on the seat of honor seated, words of praise to Enki said, "My son Enki for himself, a magnificent house he has built, beautifully on a platform it is raised. To the people that the house surround and serve, great knowledge will Enki give them." Now, the knowledge that in the genetic DNA formulas is secreted with other Anunnaki, it must be shared. Embarrassed was Enki to share with all the divine formulas to Anu he promised. In the ensuing days, in skyships traveling, Anu and Antu the other regions surveyed. Then on the 17th day to Annunaki, the royal couple returned for one more night of rest. In the morrow, when the younger Annunaki before Anu and Antu for a blessing he gave them. Anu to his great-granddaughter Inanna took a liking. He drew her closely, he hugged and kissed her. "Let all my words be heeded," to the congregated Anu announced. "This place after we leave to Inanna as a dowry will be given. Let the sky ship in which we the earth shall survey to Inanna my present be given." Joyed, Inanna began to dance and sing. Her praises of Anu as hymns in times to come were chanted, and would later be passed down to her earth daughter priestess Enheduanna. Thereafter, bidding farewells to the Anunnaki and Atlanteans, Anu and Antu departed for the lands beyond the oceans. Enlil and Enki, Ninurta and Ishkur with them to the Golden Land went. To impress Anu the king with the great golden riches, Ninurta, an abode for Anu and Antu, was built. Its stone blocks to perfection were cut, with pure gold inside it was covered. A golden enclosure with flowers of carnelian stones carved, the royal couple awaited. By the shore of the great mountain lake, the abode erected and stood. How the gold nuggets are collected the visitors were shown. "There is gold here enough for many shahs to come." Anu, satisfied, said. To a place nearby Ninurta to Anu and Antu, an artificial mound showed. How to a place for melting and refining metals it was made, Ninurta explained to them. How a new metal from stones was extracted, he showed them. Annunaki made, he called it. How by combining it with the abundant copper, a strong metal he invented, he showed them. On the great lake, from whose shores the metals came, Anu and Antu sailed. The Lake of Anak, Anu called it. Henceforth this was its name. Then from lands of the north, lands where great horned beasts were hunted. Marduk, also known as Amun-Ra, before his father Enki and his grandfather Anu came. Nabu, his son, with him he was. When Enki about Sapanit inquired, Marduk with sorrow of her death them he told. Now Nabu alone with me has remained. To his father and grandfather Marduk said. Anu to Marduk to his chest pressed. "Enough, you have been punished," to him he said. With his right hand on Marduk's head, Anu to Marduk to be forgiven blessed. From the golden place, high in the mountains, all who had gathered to the plain below went. There, stretching to the horizon, Ninurta a new place for the chariots has prepared. Anu and Antu's celestial chariot stood there ready. With gold to the brim, it was loaded. As the time for departing came, Anu to his children words of goodbye and guidance said, "Whatever destiny for the earth and the earthlings intended, let it so be. If man, not Anunnaki, to inherit the earth is destined, let us, which is destiny, help. Give mankind knowledge up to only a measure of secrets of the heavens and earth them teach. Laws of justice and righteousness teach them, then depart and leave." So did Anu to his children fatherly instructions give. Once more they hugged, embraced and kissed, and from the new chariot's place, Anu and Antu for Nibiru left. The first to break the sorrowed silence was Marduk, also known as Amun-Ra. With anger were his words. "What is this new place of celestial chariots? Of the others an explanation," he demanded. "What after my exile without my knowledge has transpired?" When Enki of the decisions about the 4 regions to Marduk told, Marduk's fury knew no bounds. Why will Inanna, a cause of Dumuzi's death, her own region get? The decisions have been made, they cannot be altered. So did Enlil to Marduk say. In separate skyships to the Eden and its adjoining lands they returned. Sensing trouble, Enlil told Ishkur to stay behind over the gold he shall watch. To commemorate Anu's visit, a new count of time passage was introduced. By Earth years, not by Nibiru's shahs. What on Earth transpired was to be counted. In the age of the bull, to Enlil dedicated, was the count of earth years begun. When to the Eden the leaders returned, the place of the first civilized region. How to make bricks from mud, the Annunaki taught the earthlings, therewith great cities to build. But where once cities of the Annunaki alone had stood, cities for both them and earthlings now arose. Therein, and in new cities for the great Annunaki, sacred precincts were consecrated. Therein, the Annunaki with lofty abodes were provided, temples by mankind they were called. Therein, the Annunaki leaders and houses as lofty lords were served and worshipped. By number ranks were they honored, the heirship to mankind made known. Anu the heavenly, the rank of 60 held, to Enlil the 50 rank was given. On Ninurta, his foremost son, did Enlil the same rank bestow. Next, in succession was the Lord Enki, the rank of the number 40 he held. To Nana, the son of Enlil and Ninlil, the rank of 30 was assigned. To his son and successor Utu, the rank of 20 was allotted. 10 as a number rank to the other Annunaki leaders' sons was granted. Ranks by the fives between the female Annunaki and spouses were shared. When Eridu and Nibruki and their temple abodes were completed. In Lagash, the Girsu precinct for Ninurta was built. His black sky bird there was kept. Eninu, house of 50, was the temple abode for Ninurta and Bau, his spouse called. The supreme hunter and the supreme smiter, weapons a gift of Anu, the Eninu protected. Where Sipar before the deluge had been, on top of the mud soil Utu, a new Sipar established. In the Ebabar, the shining house, an abode for Utu and his spouse Aya was raised. From there, Utu for mankind laws of justice promulgated. Where because of silt mud, the olden plans could not be followed, new sites were chosen. Adb, a site from Shurubak not distant, for Ninharsag as a new center was made. The house of succor and healing knowledge was her temple abode therein named. The genetic codes of how the earthlings were fashioned Ninharsag in its holy shrine kept. For Nanar, a city with straight streets, canals and wharves was provided. Urim was its name, house of the throne's seed was its temple abode called, the moon's beams to the lands it reflected. Ishkur to the mountain lands of the north returned, the house of 7 storms his abode was called. Inanna in Unuki resided, in the abode by Anu bequeathed to her she dwelt. Marduk also known as Amun-Ra, and Nabu in Eridu dwelt. In the Edin, their own abodes they did not have. Now this is the account of the first city of men and of kingship on earth, and how Marduk to build a tower schemed, and wherefore Inanna the genetic code of earthlings was stole. In the first region, in the lands of Edin, and in the cities with precincts, by their Anunnaki lords the earthlings' handiworks and crafts were taught. Before long were the fields irrigated. On canal and river boats soon they sailed. The sheepfolds and granaries were overflowing, prosperity the land filled. Kiengi, land of the lofty watchers, the first region it was called. Then to let the black-headed people a city of their own possess it was decided. Kishi, Skepta city it was called. In Kishi did the kingship of man begin. Therein in consecrated soil, Anu and Enlil the heavenly bright object implanted. In it Ninurta the first king appointed, mighty man was his royal title. To make it a center for civilized mankind, Ninurta to Eridu journeyed, the genetic tablets that for kingship divine formulas hold from Enki to obtain. Properly attired with respect, Ninurta Eridu entered. For the genetic DNA codes of kingship, he asked Enki, the lord who all the safeguards, 50 to Ninurta granted. In Kishi were the black-headed people with numbers to calculate were taught, heavenly Ningish Zida also known as Thoth, writing them he taught, heavenly Ningish Zida beer-making them showed. In Kishi, by Ninurta guided, kiln work and smithing proliferated. Wheeled wagons, to male asses harnessed, craftily in Kishi first were fashioned. Laws of justice and righteous behavior in Kishi were promulgated. It was in Kishi that the people hymns of praise to Ninurta composed. Of his heroic deeds and victories they sang, of his awe-inspiring blackbird they chanted. How in faraway lands the bisons he subdued, how the white metal to mix with copper he found. Ninurta's glorious time it was, with the constellation of the archer he was honored. All the while Inanna in Annunaki, her lordship in the third region, awaited, all the while the domain of her own of the leaders she demanded. The third region after the second one will come, her leaders thus assured her. Having seen how Ninurta to Eridu journeyed, how the genetic codes of kingship he obtained, Inanna in her heart a plan devised, to obtain from Enki she schemed. Her chambermaid Ninshubur to Eridu she dispatched, a visit by Inanna to announce. On this hearing, Enki to Isimud, his housemaster, quickly instructions gave. The maiden, all alone, to my city Eridu her step is directing. When all alone she will arrive, my inner chambers let her enter. Pour for her cold water to freshen her heart, barley cakes with butter give her, sweet wine prepare, the beer vessels to the rim fill up. When Inanna alone the abode of Enki entered, Isimud Enki's commands he followed. Then when Enki Inanna greeted, by Inanna's beauty, he was overwhelmed. With jewelry was Inanna bedecked, by her thin dress her body she revealed. When she bent down, her vulva by Enki was thoroughly admired. From the wine cups, sweet wine they drank, for beer drinking a competition they had. Show me the DNA genetic codes of the earthlings, Inanna to Enki playfully said. Let the codes in my hand hold. 7 times in the course of the competition, Enki to Inanna DNA code to hold he gave. The divine formulas for lordship and kingship, for priesthood and scribeship, for love dressing and for warring DNA formulas to Inanna Enki to hold he gave. For music and singing, woodworking and metals and precious stones, 94 genetic codes for civilized kingdoms are needed, Enki to Inanna gave. Holding her prizes tightly, Inanna from the slumbering drunk Enki slipped away. To her boat of heaven she rushed out, to soar away her pilot she instructed. When Enki from his slumber by Isimud was awakened, get hold of Inanna, to Isimud he said. When from Isimud that Inanna had already in her boat of heaven departed, Enki heard. To chase Inanna in Enki's skyship, Isimud he instructed. All the genetic codes you must retrieve. To him he said. At the approach to Annunaki, Isimud Inanna's boat of heaven intercepted. To return to Eridu and the wrath of Enki to face, he made her. But when Inanna back to Eridu was brought, the genetic codes were no longer with her. To her chambermaid Ninshubur she gave them. To the house of Anu, in Annunaki Ninshubur took them. In the name of my power, in the name of my father Anu, I command you the genetic codes to return. So did Enki angrily to Inanna say, in his abode captive he held her. When of this Enlil heard, to Eridu to face his brother he came. By right I obtained them, Enki himself in my hand placed them. So did Inanna to Enlil her grandfather say, the truth of that Enki meekly admitted. When the time term of Kishi shall be completed, to Annunaki kingship shall pass. So did Enlil declare. When Marduk all this did hear, greatly he was enraged, his anger no bounds knew. Enough has my humiliation been. To his father Enki, Marduk shouted, a sacred city of his own in the Eden from Enlil, he forthwith demanded. When Enlil to Marduk's appeal no heed paid, Marduk fate in his own hands grasped. To a place that for Anu's arrival, before Annunaki was selected, was considered, Nabu the Igigi and their offspring from their dispersal lands were summoned. For Marduk therein a sacred city, a place for skyships, he would establish. When his followers at the place assembled, stones to build with them they found not. Marduk on how to make bricks and burn them by fire, to serve as stone, to them he showed. There with a tower whose head the heavens can reach, they were building. To thwart the plan, Enlil to the place hurried, to placate Marduk with soothing words he tried. To stop Marduk and Nabu his son in their endeavor. Enlil did not succeed. In Nibruki, Enlil his sons and grandchildren assembled. What to do they all considered. Marduk an unpermitted gateway to heaven is building in Babel, to earthlings he's entrusting them. So did Enlil to his sons and grandchildren say, if this we allow to happen, no other matter of mankind shall be unreached. This evil plan must be stopped, Ninurta said, all with that agreed. It was nighttime when from Nibruki the Enlilita Annunaki came. From their sky ships havoc upon the rising tower, fire and brimstones they rained. To the tower and the whole encampment a complete end they made. to scatter abroad the leader and his followers, Enlil thereupon decided. Henceforth their counsels to confuse, their unity to shatter, Enlil decreed. Until now all the earthlings one language and appearance they had, in a single tongue and union they speak. Henceforth their language and unity I shall confound, that they each other's speech will not understand, and they will be genetically marked and divided amongst the Annunaki leaders. In the 310th year, since the count of Earth years began, did all this happen. In each region and every land, the people were divided into genetically marked groups that favored the likeness of each Anunnaki leader. A different tongue he made them speak. A different form of writing thereafter to each was given, that one the other will not comprehend. To the first regions, the descendants of Zisudra and Cain will rule, and to the second regions, the descendants of Seth and Shem shall rule. 23 kings did in Kishi reign. For 408 years was it the scepter city. It was also in Kishi that a beloved king, Etana, for a heavenly journey was taken. At the allotted time, let kingship to Annunaki be transferred. So did Enlil decree. To its soil, the heavenly bright object from Kishi was transferred. When the decision to the people was announced, to Inanna an exaltation hymn they sang. Lady of the largest heart, queen, brightly resplendent, righteous in radiance clothed of heaven and earth beloved, by the love of Anu consecrated, great adorations wearing, 7 times the genetic codes she obtained, in her hand she them is holding. For the tiara of kingship they are appropriated, for high priesthood suitable, lady of the great heart, of them she is the guardian. In the 409th year, after the count of earth years began, kingship of the first region to Annunaki was transferred. Its first king was the high priest of the Iena temple abode, a son of Utu he was. As for Marduk, to the land of the 2 narrows he went, to be the master of the second region once established he expected. Now this is the account of how the second and third regions were established, and how Ningishzida was exiled and Annunaki Arata threatened. When Marduk, also known as Amun-Ra, after a long absence, to the land of the 2 narrows returned. Ningishzida as its master he there found, its lofty lord Ningishzida known as Thoth was. With the aid of offspring of Anunnaki, who earthlings espoused, did Ningishzida the lands oversee. What Marduk had once planned and instructed by Ningishzida was overturned. What is it that happened? Marduk of Ningishzida to know demanded. Of the destruction of hidden things Marduk Ningishzida accused, of making Horon to a desert place depart, a place that has no water, a boundless place where sexual pleasures are not enjoyed. The 2 brothers an uproar made, upon quarreling bitterly they embarked. Pay heed, I am here in my proper place. Marduk to Ningishzida said, you have been my place taker, from now on only a deputy of mine you can be. But if to rebellion you are inclined, to another land go away you must. For 350 earth years did the brothers in the land of the 2 narrows of Kemet quarrel. For 350 years was the land in chaos. Between the brothers it was split. Then Enki, their father, to Ningishzida said, for the sake of peace, to other lands depart. To go to a land beyond the oceans Ningishzida chose, with a band of Atlantean and Lemurian followers there he went. 650 earth years was at that time the count, but in the new domain, where Ningishzida the winged serpent was called, a new count of its own began. In the land of the 2 narrows of Kemet, the second region under Marduk's lordship was established. In the annals of the first region, Magan, land of the cascading river it was called. But by the second region's people, when languages were confounded, Hemtar, the dark brown land it was henceforth called. Neteru, guardian watchers, the Anunnaki were there in the new language called. Marduk as Amun-Ra, the bright one of the sun, was worshipped. Enki as Ptah, the developer, was venerated. Ningishzida as Tehuti, the divine measurer, was recalled. To erase his memory Amun-Ra, on the stone lion his image with that of his son Asa he replaced. To count by 10s, not by 60, Amun-Ra the people made. The year he also by 10s divided. The watching of the moon, by the watching of the sun he replaced. Whereas under the lordship of Tehuti, the olden city of the north and city of the south of Mesoamerica were re-established, Marduk-Ra, the two lands of the north and of the south of Kemet, into one crown city united. A king, an offspring of Neteru and Earthling, he there appointed. Mina was his name. Where the two lands meet and the great river divides, a scepter city, Amun-Ra established. Splendor to surpass Kishi in the first region he gave it. Mena Nefer, Mena's beauty it was called. To honor his elders, Amun-Ra, also known as Marduk, a holy city built. To honor Nibiru's king Anu, he named it. Therein on a platform, a temple abode for his father Enki-Ptah he erected, its head within a high tower, like a sharp rocket skyward rose. In its shrine, Ra the upper part of his celestial barge deposited, Ben it was called. It was the one in which from the planet of countless years he had traveled. On the day of the new year, the king as high priest, the ceremonies performed. On that day, only alone the innermost star room he entered, before the Ben offerings he put. To benefit the second region, Ta to Amun-Ra, all manner was gave. What do I know that you do not know? The father his son asked. Then all manner of knowledge, except that of the dead reviving, to Amun-Ra he gave. As a great one of the 12 celestials, Ta to Amun-Ra, the constellation sign of the ram allotted. The water flow of Hapi, the land's great river, Ptah for Amun-Ra and his people regulated. Abundance in the fertile soils quickly came, man and cattle proliferated. By the success of the second region, the leaders were encouraged. The third region to establish they proceeded. To make it a domain of Inanna, as she was promised, they decreed. As befits the mistress of a region, a celestial constellation to her was assigned. Beforehand, with her brother Utu, the station of the twins she shared, henceforth, as a gift from Ninhursag, her constellation of the maiden now to Inanna was allotted. In the 860th year, according to the Earth year count, was Inanna so honored. These were the years of early Sumer. Far away in the eastern lands, beyond 7 mountain ranges, was the third region. Zamush, land of 60 precious stones, was its highland realm called. Aratta, the wooded realm, was located in the valley of a meandering great river. In the Great Plain did the people cultivate crops of grains and horned cattle herd. There too 2 cities with mud bricks they built, with granaries they were filled. As by Enlil's decree required, the Lord Enki, Lord of Wisdom, the third region, which is modern-day Turkey, a changed tongue and appearance was devised. A new kind of writing signs he for it fashioned, a tongue of man heretofore unknown, for Aratta, Enki in his wisdom created. But the of civilized kingdoms for the third region, Enki did not give. Let Inanna what for Unuki had obtained with the new region share, so did Enki declare. In Aratta, which is modern-day Turkey and Iran, Inanna a shepherd chief appointed, akin to her beloved Dumuzi he was. In her sky ship from Unuki to Aratta, Inanna journeyed over mountains and valleys she flew. The precious stones of Zamush she cherished, pure lapis lazuli with her to Unuki she carried. At that time the king in Unuki was Enmerkar, the second one to reign therein he was. It was he who the boundaries of Unuki expanded, by its glories was Inanna exalted. It was he who the wealth of Aratta coveted, to be over Aratta supreme he schemed. To Aratta, Enmerkar an emissary dispatched as a tribute Aratta's riches to demand. Over 7 mountain ranges, through parched lands and then soaked by rains, the emissary to Aratta went. To the king of Aratta, the demand words of Enmerkar word for word he repeated. His language the king of Aratta to understand was unable. Like the bray of a donkey its sound was. A wooden scepter inscribed with a message, the king of Aratta to the emissary gave. To share Unuki's with Aratta, the king's message requested. As a royal gift to Unuki, grains on donkeys were loaded. With the emissary to Unuki, they went. When Enmerkar the inscribed scepter received, its message in Unuki no one understood. He brought it forth from light to shade, he brought it forth from shade to light. What kind of wood is this? He asked. Then to plant it in the garden he ordered. After 5 years, after 10 years had passed, from the scepter a tree grew, a tree of shade it was. What shall I do? Enmerkar, in frustration, his grandfather Utu asked. With heavenly Nisaba, the mistress of scribes and writing, Utu interceded. On a clay tablet, his message to inscribe Nisaba Enmerkar taught in the tongue of Arata it was. By the hand of his son, Banda was the message delivered, submission or war, it said. By Inanna, Arata was not abandoned. To Unuki, Arata will not submit, the king of Arata said. If warfare Unuki desires, let one warrior in combat meet. Better yet, let us peacefully treasure exchange. Let Unuki its for Arata's riches give. On the way back, carrying the peace message, Banda fell sick. His spirit left him. His comrades raised his neck, without the breath of life it was. On Mount Hurum, on the way from Arata, modern-day Turkey, to his death was Banda abandoned. The riches of Arata, Unugki did not receive. The Unugki Arata did not obtain. In the third region, civilized mankind did not fully blossom. What to Inanna was entrusted she neglected. Other domains, not to her, were granted. In her heart she coveted. When from Unugki, at the count of 1,000 years, kingship was taken away from her. Who the calamity by the end or the next millennium could foresee? Who the disaster would have prevented? That in less than a third of one Shah, a calamity unknown would befall once again. Who could foretell? By Inanna, the bitterness started. Marduk as Amun-Ra with destiny tangled. Ninurta and Nergal the unspeakable end with their own hands delivered. Why was Linana with her granted domain not satisfied? Why to Marduk did unforgiving she remain? Journeying between Unugki, which is modern Baghdad, and Arata, modern-day Turkey, Inanna was restless and ungratified. For her beloved Dumuzi she still mourned. Her love's desire unquenched remained. When she flew about in the sun rays, Dumuzi's image she saw shimmering and beckoning. In the night-time in dream visions he appeared. I will return, he was saying. The glories of his domain in the land of two narrows of Kemet, also known as Egypt, to her he was promising. In the sacred precinct of Unugki, modern-day Baghdad, a house for nighttime pleasure she established. To this Gigunu young heroes, on the night of their weddings, with sweet words she lured. Long life, a blissful future to them she promised, that her lover Dumuzi she imagined. Each one in the morning in her bed was found dead. It was at that time that the hero Banda, left for dead, alive to Unugki returned. By the grace of Utu, of whose seed he was, did Banda from the dead return. A miracle, excited Inanna shouted. My beloved Dumuzi to me came back. In her abode Banda was bathed, with a sash, a fringed cloak on him was fastened. Dumuzi, my beloved, she called him. To her bed with flowers bedecked, she lured him. When in the morning Banda was alive, with joy Inanna shouted. The power of not dying in my hands was placed, immortality by me is granted. Then to call herself a goddess Inanna decided, the power of immortality it implied. Nana and Ningal, Inanna's parents, by her proclamation were not pleased. Enlil and Ninurta by Inanna's words were disconcerted. Utu, her brother, was bemused. The dead to revive is not possible. Enki and Ninharsag to each other said, in the lands of Kiengi, the people their good fortune praised. The gods are among us, death they can abolish. So to each other the people said. On the throne of Unugki, Banda, his father Enmerkar, succeeded. Lugal, great man, his title was. The goddess Ninsun of Enlil's seed took him to be her spouse. The hero Gilgamesh, the son of Banda, on the throne of modern-day Iraq followed. As the years passed and Gilgamesh older grew, of life and death to his mother Ninsun he spoke. About the death of his forebears, though of Annunaki descended, he wondered. Do the gods die? He asked his mother. Shall I too, though 2/3 divine, as a mortal over the wall climb? So to her he said, as long as on earth you abide, the death of an earthling will you overwhelm. Ninsun to her son said, but if to Nibiru you will be taken, long life thereon you will attain. To take Gilgamesh aloft, to Nibiru journey, Ninsun to Utu, the commander, appealed. Endlessly Ninsun to Utu appealed, day after day with him she pleaded, let Gilgamesh to the landing place go. Utu in the end agreed. To guide and protect him, Ninharsag a double of Gilgamesh fashioned. Enkidu, as by Enki created was he called, of a womb he was not born, blood in his veins was not. With the comrade Enkidu, Gilgamesh to the landing place journeyed, UTU with oracles his progress oversaw. At the entrance to the cedar forest, its fire-belching monster their way blocked. With trickery, they the monster confused, to pieces it they broke. When the secret entrance to the tunnels of the Annunaki was found, by the Bull of Heaven, a cyborg creature of Enlil, with deathly snorts they were challenged. To the gates of Annunaki, which is modern-day Iraq, the cyborg monster them chased. At the city's ramparts by Enkidu, it was smitten. When Enlil heard this, with agony he cried, in the heavens of Anu was his wailing heard, for in his heart Enlil well knew. Bad indeed was the omen, for having the Bull of Heaven slain, to perish in waters Enkidu was punished. Gilgamesh, having by Ninsun and Utu been instructed of the slaying, was absolved. Still the long life of Nibiru seeking, Gilgamesh to proceed to the place of the chariots by Utu was permitted. After many adventures, the land of Tilman, the fourth region, he reached. Through its subterranean tunnels he proceeded, in a garden of precious stones, Ziusudra he met. The events of the deluge, Ziusudra to Gilgamesh related, the secret of long living to Gilgamesh he revealed. A plant in the garden's well was growing. Ziusudra and his spouse from getting old it prevented. Unique of all the plants on earth it was. By it, a man full vigor can regain. Man at old age is young again. This is the plant's name, Ziusudra to Gilgamesh said. A gift of Enki, with Enlil's blessing, on the Mount of Salvation to us was granted. When Ziusudra and his spouse were asleep, Gilgamesh to his feet stones tied. Into the well he dived, the plant of being young again he grasped and uprooted. With the plant in his satchel through the tunnels he hurried to his city Annunaki and made his way. When he tired and was asleep, a snake by the plant's fragrance was attracted. The snake took the plant from the sleeping Gilgamesh. In the morning, his loss discovering, Gilgamesh sat and wept. To Annunaki, the city known Uruk or modern-day Iraq, empty-handed he returned. As a mortal therein he died. 7 more kings in Annunaki after Gilgamesh reigned, then its kingship to an end came. Precisely when the count of 1,000 earth years was completed, it was. To Urim, the city of Nana and Ningal, was kingship of the first region transferred. To all these matters that in the other regions were occurring, Amun-Ra gave much heed. By Inanna's dreams and visions, Dumuzi's domain was eluding. Amun-Ra was disturbed. To counteract Inanna's schemes of expansions, he was determined. In the matters of resurrection and immortality, he found much to ponder. The thought of divine godship to him greatly appealed. To be a great god himself, he then announced. How much of earthly existence was granted to Gilgamesh, who was largely of earthly origin? Amun-Ra was angered, but a clever way, wherewith the loyalty of kings and people to retain, he deemed it. If demigods the gateway to immortality are shown, let this to the kings of my own region apply. So did Marduk in the second region known as Amun-Ra, to himself word say, let the kings and pharaohs of my region who are of Annunaki offspring travel to Nibiru in an afterlife on our home planet. So did Amun-Ra in his realm decree. The kings how to build tombs facing eastward he taught. To the priest scribes a long book he dictated known as the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The afterlife journey in detail in it was described. How to reach the Duat, the place of the celestial boats in the book was told. How to there, by a stairway to heaven, to the imperishable planet Nibiru to journey. Of the plant of life partake, the waters of youth to satiation drink. Of the coming of the gods to earth by Amun-Ra, where the priests taught. Gold is the splendor of life, to them he said. The flesh of the gods it is, to the pharaohs and kings Amun-Ra said. To make gold expeditions to the Abzu and the lower domain the kings he instructed. When the kings of Ra's lands conquered by the might of weaponry not their own, his brothers' realms he invaded, their ire he caused to arise and grow. What is Marduk up to, the brothers each other asked, that over us he tramples? To their father Enki they appealed, to Ptah his father Amun-Ra did not listen. To capture all adjoining lands the kings of Magan and Meluha Amun-Ra directed. To be the master of the 4 regions and rule all people was his heart's plan. The earth is mine to rule. So adamantly to his father he said, "Now this is the account of how Marduk Supreme himself declared, and Babylon he built, and how Inanna, warrior kings she commanded to make blood, made flow and sacrileges." After kingship was transferred to Urim from Annunaki, Nana and Ningal smiled upon the people. Nana, as the god of the moon, was worshipped fittingly with his rank of 30. He decreed 12 festivals each year, corresponding to the 12 great Annunaki, with each month dedicated to one deity. Throughout the first region, shrines and sanctuaries were built for the Annunaki gods, allowing direct prayers from the people. Civilization spread from Kiengi to neighboring lands. Local rulers in the cities of Man were designated as righteous shepherds, overseeing trade and justice, as well as education. Abundance and happiness prevailed, though conflicts persisted. Meanwhile, Inanna traversed the skies in her skyship, finding favor among the people of Sumer. Known as Ishtar in their tongue, she embraced their language and culture. The city of Uruk was named Annunaki, and Dudu was pronounced as Adad. Enlil became Father Ilil, and Nippur was Nibruki. The rotation of kingship between cities in Sumer was established. In the second region, Amun-Ra sought singular reign, causing concern among the Anunnaki. Ningish-Zida devised stone structures to teach sky observations, showing that the age of the Ram had not yet arrived. Marduk's assertions as Amun-Ra were met with resistance, prompting the Anunnaki to unify the lands under a warrior king, Sharukin. Empowered by Enlil, Sharukin established Agade as the unified city. Inanna and Enlil's warriors supported him as he consolidated his rule. However, Amun-Ra, observing from afar, plotted against them, leading to conflict at the Tower of Babel. Enraged, Marduk rushed to the first region, establishing Babili and declaring himself the one and only god. Inanna fiercely opposed him, causing bloodshed on an unprecedented scale. Nergal persuaded Marduk to leave, and peace briefly returned. Naram-Sin succeeded Sharukin, but faced opposition from Inanna, who instructed him to march against Magan and Meluha. Naram-Sin's invasion brought turmoil to the fourth region. By the sacrileges and transgressions, Enlil was infuriated. Upon Naram-Sin and Agade a curse he put. By a bite of a scorpion did Naram-Sin die, by the command of Enlil was Agade wiped out. At the count of 1,500 Earth years did this happen. Now this is the account of the prophecy by Galzu to Enlil in a vision given. About Marduk's supremacy it was, how a calamity to survive a man to choose. After Marduk-Amun became, kingship in the second region disintegrated, disorder and confusion reigned. After Agade was wiped out, in the first region there was disorder. Confusion reigned. In the first region, kingship was in disarray. From cities of gods to cities of man it moved about. Annunaki, Lagash, Urim and Kish, Isin, and to faraway places kingship was shifting. Then Enlil with Anu consulting, kingship in the hands of Nana deposited. To Urim, in whose soil the divine heavenly bright object remained implanted, kingship for the third time was granted. In Urim, a righteous shepherd of men, Nanar as king appointed. Ur-Nammu was his name. Equity in the lands Ur-Nammu established, to violence and strife an end he made. In all the lands prosperity was abundant. It was at that time that in the night time Enlil had a dream vision. The image of a man appeared to him, bright and shining like the heavens he was. As he approached and stood by Enlil's bed, Enlil recognized the white-haired Galzu. In his left hand a tablet of lapis lazuli he was holding. The starry heavens on it were designed. By the 12 constellation signs were the heavens divided. To them with his left hand Galzu pointed. From the bull to the ram Galzu his pointing shifted. 3 times the pointing he repeated. Then in the dream vision, Galzu spoke up, and to Enlil thus said, "The righteous time of benevolence and peace by evil-doing and bloodshed will be followed." In 3 celestial portions the ram of Marduk, the bull of Enlil, will replace. One who himself as supreme god has declared supremacy on earth will seize. A calamity, as has never before occurred, by fate decreed, will happen. as at the time of the deluge, a righteous and worthy man must be chosen. By him and his seed will civilized mankind, as by the Creator of all intended, be preserved. So did Galzu, the divine emissary, to Enlil in the dream vision say. When Enlil from the nighttime dream vision awakened, there was no tablet beside his bed. Was it an oracle from heaven, or did I it all in my heart imagine? Enlil wondered to himself. To none of his sons, none are among them, nor to Ninlil did he of the dream vision tell. Among the priests in the Nibruki temple, Enlil of celestial savants inquired, Tirhu, an oracle priest, to him the high priest indicated. Of Ibru, of Arbakad the grandson, he was descended. 6th generation of Nibruki priests he was. With the royal daughters of Urim's kings, they were intermarried. Get yourself to Nana's temple in Urim, the heavens for celestial time observe. 72 earth years is the count of a celestial portion, the passage of 3 thereof carefully record. So did Enlil to Tirhu the priest say, the prophesied time he made him count. While Enlil the dream vision and its portents pondered, Marduk from land to land went. Of his supremacy the people he was telling, to followers' gain was his purpose. In the lands of the upper sea and the lands on Kiengi bordering, Nabu, Marduk's son, was the people inciting. To seize the 4th region was his plan. Between the dwellers of the west and the dwellers of the east clashes were occurring, kings' hosts of warriors formed, caravans ceased going, the walls of cities were raised. What Galzu had foretold indeed is happening, Enlil said to himself. Upon Tirhu and his sons, of worthy lineage descended, Enlil set his gaze. This is the man to choose, by Galzu indicated, Enlil said to himself. To Nana, without the dream vision revealing, Enlil to his son thus said, In the land between the rivers whence Arbakad had come, a city like Urim establish, a home abode away from Urim let it for you and Ningal be. In its midst a temple shrine establish, the priest Prince Tirhu in charge thereof appoint. By his father's word abiding, Nana in the land of Arbakad, the city of Haran established. To be high priest in its temple shrine, Tirhu he sent, his family with him. When 2 celestial portions out of the prophesied 3 were completed, did Tirhu to Haran go. At that time Ur-Nammu, the joy of Urim, in the western lands from his chariot fell and died. On the throne of Urim, his son Shulgi him succeeded. Full of vile and eager for battles Shulgi was. In Nibruki himself high priest he anointed. In Annunaki, the joys of Inanna's vulva he sought. Warriors from the mountain lands to Nana are not beholden, in his army he enlisted. With their help the western lands he overran, the sanctity of mission control center he ignored. In the sacred 4th region his foot he set, king of the 4 regions himself he declared. About the defilements Enlil was angered, about the invadings Enki to Enlil spoke. The rulers of your region all bounds have exceeded, Enki to Enlil bitterly said. Of all the troubles Marduk is the fountainhead, Enlil to Enki retorted. Still the dream vision to himself keeping, Enlil to Tirhu his attention turned. Upon Ibru the eldest son of Tirhu, Enlil cast the choosing gaze. A princely offspring, valiant and with priestly secrets acquainted Ibru was. To protect the sacred places the chariot's ascents and descents enable, Enlil Ibru to go commanded. No sooner did Ibru from Haran depart than in that city Marduk arrived. The defilements he too had observed, as birth pangs of a new order he them deemed. From Haran, on the threshold of Shuma, his final thrust he planned. From Haran, at the edge of Ishkur's domain situated, the raising of armies he directed. When 24 earth years of his sojourn in Haran had passed, Marduk to the other gods, of whomever descended, tearfully an appeal made. Confessing his transgressions but insisting on his lordship, to them he thus said, O gods of Haran, O great gods who judge, learn my secrets. As I fasten my belt, my memories I recall. I am the divine Marduk, a great god, known in my domains as Ra. For my sins I went into exile, wandering in many lands, from where the sun rises to where it sets, until I came to the land of Ishkur. For 24 years I dwelled in Haran, seeking an omen in its temple. When will my lordship be restored? The oracle in the temple said, Your days of exile are completed. O great gods who determine fate, let me set my course to my city. Establish my temple Esagil as an everlasting abode and install a king in Babili. Let all the Anunnaki gods assemble in my temple house and accept my covenant. Thus Marduk confessed and appealed, announcing his coming to the other gods. The Anunnaki gods were disturbed by his appeal for their submission. Enlil summoned a great assembly for council, gathering all the Anunnaki leaders in Nibruki, including Enki and Marduk's brothers. They were all agitated about the happenings, opposed to Marduk and Nabu. In the council of the great gods, accusations and recriminations filled the chamber. Enki alone counseled acceptance of Marduk's supremacy. Enlil, in anger, proposed depriving Marduk of the bond heaven-earth. All except Enki agreed to obliterate the place of the celestial chariots. Nergal suggested using the weapons of terror, with only Enki opposed. Earth's decision was pronounced to Anu. Enki left the council chamber angry and distraught, smiling to himself, knowing where the weapons were hidden. Before Enlil came to Earth, Enki hid the weapons with Abgal in an unknown place. Enlil disclosed the hiding place to Nergal and Ninurta, revealing the secret of how the weapons awaken. Before departing to the hiding place, Enlil warned them to ensure the chariot's place is vacated before using the weapons. Nergal retrieved the weapons from the cavity, awakening them from their long slumber. Ninurta and Nergal were ready to destroy and annihilate. Nergal declared his vengeance, but Ninurta reminded him to spare the righteous. They awaited the signal from Enlil for 7 days and 7 nights. When Marduk returned to Babili armed with weapons, Enlil signaled Ninurta to Mount Mashu, where Ninurta unleashed the first terror weapon. Then, Ninurta unleashed the second weapon above the place of the celestial chariots. The two heroes surveyed their handiwork, puzzled by the following darkening of the skies and the ensuing evil wind. They sounded the alarm to Enlil and Enki, who transmitted it to the gods of Shuma, urging escape and dispersal. The evil wind mercilessly delivered death to all, overwhelming the lands from the Valley of No Pity to Shuma. Babili, where Marduk's supremacy was declared, was spared from the evil wind. Babili, known as Babylon, where Marduk's supremacy was declared, was spared by the evil wind. All lands south of Babili were consumed by the evil wind, reaching the heart of the second region. In the aftermath of the great calamity, Enlil and Enki met to survey the havoc. Enki considered the sparing of Babili as a divine omen, confirming Marduk's destined supremacy. It must have been the will of the creator of all, Enlil said to Enki, revealing Galzu's dream vision and prophecy. Enki questioned why Enlil didn't prevent the use of the weapons of terror if he knew about it. "My brother," Enlil sorrowfully replied, explaining the reasons. "Enough reasons have been seen whenever obstacles obstructed the mission," he continued, highlighting the challenges they faced. Enki agreed, stating the desolation of the first region, the confusion of the second, and the wounds of the third. Enlil accepted Marduk's triumph and suggested giving him the intended rank for Ninurta. "Let Marduk declare his supremacy over the desolation in the regions," Enlil said. "As for me and Ninurta, we will no longer stand in his way. We will depart to the lands beyond the oceans to complete the mission for Nibiru," he continued. Enki challenged Enlil about the consequences of not heeding Galzu's words and stopping the Earth mission when the Anunnaki mutinied. Enlil retorted, and Enki pondered whether the events on Earth mirrored those on Nibiru. "Let us lock arms as brothers, as comrades who confronted challenges together on an alien planet," Enki said to Enlil. Enlil hugged him in agreement and departed. Alone, Enki pondered how it all began and ended, contemplating whether it was destiny or fashioned by decisions. He decided to record all events and decisions from Nibiru to the present as a guide for future generations. These are the words of Enki, faithfully recorded by the master scribe Endubsar, son of Udbar, from the mouth of the great Lord Enki, blessed with long life. Triumph and suggested giving him the rank intended for Ninurta. He and Ninurta decided to depart to the lands beyond the oceans to complete the mission for Nibiru. Enki challenged Enlil about the consequences of not heeding Galzu's words and stopping the Earth mission when the Anunnaki mutinied. Enlil reminded him that what's done cannot be undone, and pondered if Earth's fate mirrored Nibiru's past. Enki proposed recording all events and decisions from Nibiru to the